Hi, I'm Carl Amaral, and I'm from Rhode Island now. I was in Troop 5 that was sponsored by a Sacred Heart Church of New Bedford. Um, and that was in the 60s. I think the first year that I was in camp might have been like 1961, 62, during the early 60s. Actually, there was a group of us, I think in 65, from a number of us from Troop 5 and the rest of the council that went on one of the Philmont expeditions. And I guess that's, that was a defining, life experience going to Philmont. Then we went by bus. It was like 4 or 5 days going by bus and staying overnight in various camps or military installations. And then was it 10 days on the trail at Philmont, and then another 4 or 5 days coming back. And I guess that's where the bug really bit me in my interest in scouting and camping and working on the staff and scouting. I was on the Cachalot staff, I think starting in 65. And I was only on the staff for 2 weeks because I couldn't get the rest of the summer off. So they offered me a non-paid volunteer staff position as a provisional scoutmaster for 2 weeks, which was kind of interesting, being a 16 or a 17-year-old at that time. The following year, I was offered and became the field sports director from 67 to 69, and went to National Camping School to get my certification, and ran the rifle range, the archery range, did camp-wide games, and everything else that fell in between. That was interesting. My final year was 1970, and I was the program director that year, and it was a challenging opportunity, but I enjoyed every minute of it. It was seemed like a 24/7-day-a-week endeavor there during that summer. It was kind of interesting. That was the summer of 1970. And I don't know if you recall, but that was the summer or spring of the Kent State massacre. And we were all college students and gung-ho, and we went on strike. And most of the colleges canceled the rest of classes during that spring. And people received their final grade as of that time that classes were canceled. So in early May, I took that opportunity to move into camp. I think I commuted for a couple of weeks before I moved in to work with the ranger at the time, whose name was Armand Guillemette. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to ingratiate myself with him, going in as the program director and being buddy with the ranger. And he was quite a guy. For those weeks prior to camp opening, we made boats, rowboats, and we shingled the new ranger's house, and we walked the property lines and marked the boundaries for the camp. It was he was really quite a tradesman and an outdoorsman. It was an interesting. It was an interesting guy to know, if anybody remembers Armand Guillemette. My last summer there, going into camp early and working with Armand Guillemette was one. But some of the things I was thinking about is before camp opened, getting prepped for it, we would go harvest cedar poles. We'd go down to the industrial park in New Bedford, and there was a big cedar swamp area where there were many cedar trees, and we would harvest a number of them to bring into camp to use for pioneering projects, because they were, they were ideal for that. The first year that I was the field sports director, sighting in rifles for the marksmanship merit badge, that was kind of fun and interesting. Building Texas towers with those cedar poles that we had harvested as pioneering projects to see how high and how big, we get the biggest or the tallest cedar poles that we could find to make these pioneering Texas towers. They would be, massive projects. And one of the things I was thinking about is that we had this old fire engine. I don't know where it came from, but you got it reconditioned, and we were very, very sensitive about fires because it was only a few years earlier that the big forest fire went through. And we practiced fire drills with that fire engine, and we got this terrific idea of having a fireman's muster in a competition with the camp staff from Squanto. That was kind of interesting and challenging. I remember John Letourneau grabbing a hose with us posting a ladder up against the trading post, and him running up the ladder with the hose, and the ladder becoming disassembled as he's going up, and that was kind of funny. The tramway, we built a tramway, a cable that must have been, it was on the highest tree. It was sort of behind the trading post, and it was a cable with a chair and some pulleys, and we would actually give scouts rides on it. We would, haul them up and then let them come down the tramway. And it's a wonder that no one ever got hurt. But now that I think about it, I don't know why we ever got away with being able to do that. And so those were some of the memories. But the most memorable memory I have of camp was in the summer of 1970, and the council or district, whichever one, or all the same, they were planning a swim meet at camp. And during this time, Fred Prefontaine had built because he was a vocational teacher at Voc, had some picnic tables that were made, but they were made with green lumber, so they were kind of sappy, had a lot of sap in them. So we were instructed, the staff, to take them down by the boathouse and put them in the lake so that they would absorb water. And the committee for the swim meet was actually meeting that day, or that evening, actually. And when we went down to the boathouse to put the tables in the lake, there were these, an older lady and her daughter. They were fishing, and they became pretty aggravated with us because we were messing up the water and scaring the fish away and everything else. But come to find out that Jane was the daughter of the chairman for this swim meet, John Accusano. And come to find out, she was volunteering as a judge for the swim meet, and it was on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday, I can't remember, and they needed volunteers from the staff, so I volunteered. And 50 years later, we're still married. So she claims she caught me fishing. So that's probably the most memorable memory I have of camp.